Welcome to the Inventory Nation podcast, a show designed to bring you the incredible voices and stories of veterinary professionals coast to coast, all while helping you to manage and control your inventory. I'm your host, Nicole Clausen, coach, advisor, and champion for veterinary teams and their inventory. Joining you live from the mountains of Montana, welcome to the show. Hello and welcome to the Inventory Nation podcast. You're listening to episode number 1. I am so delighted and thrilled that you are joining us for the very first episode. One of my favorite things about working with so many veterinary professionals is meeting some incredible people and helping practices manage their inventory. I wanted to create a space to share the stories and voices of veterinary professionals, but also share strategies and tips to help you manage your inventory. Today, I am absolutely honored to be joined by Caitlin, a practice manager extraordinaire at Animal Dental Specialists of Upstate New York, a general practice and dental specialties practice. Caitlin is a licensed veterinary technician and has an associate's degree in veterinary science technology and a bachelor's in veterinary practice management. Thank you so much for joining us, Caitlin.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, it's absolutely my pleasure. So tell us your story. How did you get started in veterinary medicine?
Well, I think similar to a lot of us, I sort of found my way into it, not necessarily on purpose. I definitely wanted to be involved in management. I knew that from when I was at school, but I found my way into inventory management specifically when a practice manager at a practice I was working at went on vacation. She asked me to take care of the inventory for her while she was gone. And when she returned, she didn't resume her inventory duties. Things seemed to be going smoothly. So she asked me if I wanted to keep doing it. And so I did. And then from there, every practice I've been at since that's what I've done.
That is
And
amazing.
all my responsibilities from there.
That's awesome. So when you very first got in veterinary medicine, did you go to school first or did you start at a practice, realize you loved it, and then went back to school?
Sort of both. I shadowed in a veterinary hospital when I was in high school. And so then straight from high school, I did go into college for veterinary science technology.
Okay, awesome. And so tell me a little bit about working in like a dental specialty practice. What is that like? What is kind of like the day-to-day look like?
Well, it's a whole different beast. Everyone's always surprised, when I take them around on a tour when I'm interviewing and tell them, oh, we do one spay or neuter every month or two and that sort of thing. Yeah, we don't do that. Our days consist of ideally 2 pretty major dental procedures. Most of the things we see are pretty involved. And our surgeries average, 3 to 5 hours per procedure,
Wow.
sometimes longer. And it also creates some different inventory challenges because of the supplies that we need for the special dental work that we do. Some things are veterinary specific to get those sorts of long lengths that we need for like a dog's canine tooth, for example, because human supplies aren't that long. But then the other side of it is getting supplies from human dental retailers and stuff like that for our supplies. So it comes from all over the place.
Oh, yeah. So I'm sure it's quite interesting to kind of source all that and find all that stuff.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a hunting expedition sometimes, especially when my veterinarian tells me I want XYZ random item.
Yeah, that's so funny. And so you mentioned that you took over when the practice manager went on vacation, you kind of took over for a little bit and then she didn't want it back. Actually, interesting side note, you're not the first person who shared that story. I think that might happen more frequently than we think. So how long have you been managing inventory for?
I've been doing inventory in general in different capacities for right around 10 years, give or take. Prior to that particular instance, I did do food ordering for a pretty large hospital. So I had some role in inventory there, but just in a specific niche areas of it. So that particular hospital was the first place where I took over the entirety of their inventory ordering.
Okay. And so when you kind of first started managing inventory, did you know that you like it, or were you like, I could kind of take it or leave it, or did you want to just dive in more?
I definitely was enthusiastic about it. And I think that's part of why she had no interest in taking it back. I was definitely more invested in it than she was. And I was very eager I'm very like OCD and hyper organized and stuff like that. And I feel like a thing that really lends to those personality types. It's something that
Yeah.
you can really like sink your teeth into as far as spreadsheets and organization and everything. And so that was totally me. I revamped the entire system that she used and made my own and started getting into spreadsheets and stuff like that for organization of all the items and reorder points and all of that, and it's definitely right up my alley.
It sounds like it's such a perfect fit for you.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like when you're an inventory manager, you have to have a little bit of a type A, a little bit of love for spreadsheets. And so I feel like those are some good traits there. So when you first took over inventory, did you have any training or did you get training from when you got your bachelor's degree in veterinary practice management? Or what did your training look like?
I would say my training prior to taking it over was pretty much nil. I didn't really have any courses on specifically inventory management. My degree, the bachelor's end of my degree, consisted more of business classes like accounting, business law, and things like that. They weren't
Sure.
very many that were very veterinary specific, really, and definitely none inventory related. I have since done some CE and stuff like that, but it was really more from observing at the different hospitals I've worked at. I'm
Uh-huh.
currently at, I think, my seventh hospital that I've worked at, and I'm very observant and detail oriented. And so I've kind of taken note everywhere I've been. But the
Sure.
first big amount of somewhat training that I received was when I shared an office with the inventory manager of a 10 doctor, 2 location mixed animal practice. And just the information I gleaned from sharing an office with her was wildly helpful and helped shape the inventory system that I use today, even. And that was back in 2007.
Okay.
So,
That's awesome. So you mentioned when you first started managing inventory at the practice you're at now that you kind of revamped the whole system, that you changed a bunch of things. What did that process look like? What did you kind of revamp and how was that? How did that go?
yeah, I've actually done it now at 2 practices, and they were both pretty similar. Both of them worked on a want book type system or a list where people
Sure.
were expected to just immaculately know the reorder points and write them down on a piece of paper and to let the practice manager know to order. And in my experience at every place I've been that has had that system, it doesn't really work very well. It's not
Hmm.
very easy as like a technician who has spent, many years working in that capacity. It's not easy to stop and say, okay, I've got to go write down, I need XYZ. And it's not going to happen. You're going to get going doing other things and you're going to forget. So my philosophy behind it was to just make it as easy and user friendly as possible and to basically make it completely idiot proof. So instead, I went with a system of reorder tags and reorder points. So as long as the items are getting entered in our practice management software and or getting physically taken off the shelf, I wrap rubber bands or tape around the item so it has to physically be removed in order to get it off the shelf. I'm very like specific in how I wrap it and stuff so that you have to actively try to not take the tag off and put it where it belongs. And you put the bins in a very central location so it's easy for folks to put it there versus slipping it in their pocket and then washing it and never seeing it again. So it's all about making it like as easy and user friendly as possible. There's always going to be some items here or there where somebody's just going to have to let you know, oh, this needs to be ordered because it's
Sure.
not possible to, especially when the doctor decides he wants some thing that we don't have or whatever. So I do have some little tags that people can write on if they need something specific that doesn't exist already. But it's the reorder tags and reorder points in the practice management software have been definitely the most useful inventory tracking methods.
That's awesome. And so what software system do you use?
I currently use AviMark.
Okay. So you have like the reorder points and the reorder quantities entered into each item. And then do you create the reorder report or do you just kind of like build a purchase order off of things to consider in AviMark, if that makes sense?
Yep. Right now, I'm just using the reorder report, and
Okay.
then from there I go to Vetcove and punch in the info there.
Sure.
Because
That makes
I take that with my reorder tags. They pile up my tags and I pull my report and I have both of those running so I can see what all needs to be ordered. Because whenever possible, I will use both a reorder tag and a reorder point on any given item. But there are
mhm,
some items where it's not realistic to do one or the other. So for us, because we do so little general practice work, we don't keep a lot of, say, like pills. Like we don't have a lot of like Filamazole or things like that. So my reorder point on those items are partial bottles. So that I just use a point in AviMark to track that. But then there are items like, say, like white goods, like IV catheters and things like that. That's not going to be tracked in my practice management software. It's not realistic to make sure that the staff enters the exact number of catheters that they use on every patient and
yeah.
think that that's going to stay accurate. So those are strictly just a tag. But then there are other things that are easier, say like Animax ointment. That's easy enough to have both a tag and a reorder point in the system that remains consistent. And so that
Mhm.
way it helps as a fail safe. I like to do both whenever at all possible because then it gives you that backup. So where sometimes they forgot to enter it in AviMark when they opened it up to use it in hospital, but that tag was still there. So I still got the tag, or vice versa. The rubber band broke, but they still entered it in AviMark. So I still got notification one way or the other.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's so important to, have both of those kind of checks and balance system that if one
Mm-hmm.
kind of maybe quote unquote fails, you have another one that
Yeah,
kind of picks up the slack.
definitely.
And I wanted to just touch on what you mentioned earlier, when you said that the want book system, having your staff and your team kind of stop what they're doing to write something quote unquote on the list really doesn't work very well. And I think that's so true. When we are relying on our patient care team to let us know when something is running low, I feel like it doesn't set us up for like the most success. And so, like you mentioned, having those reorder tags, those reorder points, super helpful. So I think that's really great that you created a system based on that. So tell me, how does your inventory function now? What does your kind of day and week look like managing inventory at this point?
I mean, as time goes on, I feel like once the inventory systems can be very time intensive initially, especially when you're setting up the reorder tags and reorder points and everything. But once things get running, even when you're having to make adjustments as you go for seasonal items and things like that, it all runs very smoothly if you put the time and effort into really getting it set up correctly. So now I really don't have to
Hmm.
spend all that much time on it. I just, I kind of see if my reorder tag bin seems to be getting full. When we're really slamming and busy, I'll try to order each day if I can, or every other day. If we're a little bit slower, I might only order once a week or so. It kind of depends. I give myself a little buffer in my reorder points intentionally because of that. And also in case of things like refrigerated items, since I only work 4 days a week. So I can only order the refrigerated items for the beginning of my week. So if that tag hits my bin on like a Thursday, and I'm not here Friday, we're closed Saturday, Sunday, I'm not going to order that till next week. So I make sure my points give me that little flexibility. But I just usually in the morning time, I'll try to check my bin. I'll throw all the info into Vetcove. And if I feel like I have enough to warrant ordering, then I'll go ahead and place my orders. If not, I'll leave it on my shopping cart for the next day and wait till I get a few more tags in. And then I do all the process start to finish. So when the inventory comes in, they leave all the boxes sitting for me in a certain area, and I unpack everything. I check all the invoices, mark all the expiration dates and the receive dates. I enter all the incoming stuff into AviMark, and I enter it into a spreadsheet too, of course. And and then I also grab the reorder tags once they come in, and I put everything away and tag it appropriately. So I feel like sometimes I've seen it at other hospitals where they have staff just unpack the inventory for them to save them that step, which if you have somebody that really is more familiar with it and has their time invested in it a little bit, I think that can work. But we're a kind of smaller location and I feel like they need to stay working on what they do and I need to stay working on what I do more. And it keeps us, keeps a better like check on things. I've seen too many times where people unpack boxes and put them away and don't realize that the item is subtly different. Like these syringes were luer locks and not luer slips like they were supposed to be, or vice
Yeah.
versa. And so then you don't notice it until you open the box and you go to use it. And now it's been on the shelf for a few months and you can't really do anything about it except use it up. So
Yeah.
I try to avoid those situations by making sure that, because I'm acutely aware of what I ordered. It's fresh in my mind because I just placed that order a day or two versus somebody that has no idea what I had placed.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point because, even if you place an order for something, but then like something different comes in. It might look right, but there's like one little detail that's off, so maybe it was, like you said, like lure lock versus lure slip, or maybe it was a bottle of 500 rather than a bottle of 100. And if anybody and everyone is unpacking those boxes, they may not kind of realize those subtle differences. So having, like you said, either somebody who is aware of the inventory order or having some kind of like process in place to help prevent any mishap when that happens is really important.
Yeah, our dental supplies create an added challenge with that too, because, for example, with root canal supplies, they come in all different lengths. We have like
Mm,
two different length sets, and then they come in, you know, 15 different girths, say going up, and then all different types. There's H files, there's K files, there's light speed files, there's simple fills, and these are all in all different widths and lengths and everything. And so it's very easy to not get the right ones. Even like with those ones, I have to stop and really double check and check off each number on my invoices and then check that against my spreadsheets, because they do actually often send me the wrong ones, because I think it's easy on either end to accidentally grab the wrong ones. So
sure.
it's a very detailed thing. And then one thing I'll mention too is that with controlled substances, that one
Mhm.
has we do have a double check for that. I do all the ordering and unpacking, but then it all goes through my practice owner. So he receives all the incoming controlled substances once I've, created a log sheet for it and, logged in the number and that sort of thing. Then it all goes to him to place into a safe that only he can access. And then he keeps track of the logbook from there of all the unopened bottles and vials of everything. And then he always checks against all the invoices each month. So that way there is a double check for that type of substance. So I'm not
Yeah.
just ordering without any oversight.
Right. Oh, sure. This sounds great. Yeah. I think that is so important for controlled substances to have the practice owner and whoever is that DEA registrant have them involved in that process. I see it so frequently where the DEA registrant isn't even involved in the process. So they can't tell you what has been ordered or not ordered. And I'm like, so I think that's so great that your practice owner is involved in that.
Yeah, and it's good too because he'll catch too, say for example, if I know something, midazolam is soon to be hard to get or something like that, and I ramp up my order, he'll we have him there to question like, okay, why do we have so much more of this than we usually do? Is this on purpose? Did you make a mistake in your ordering? Is there going
Hmm.
to be a problem with this item? Because we have, so frequently have issues with getting different controlled substances, like especially the C2s and things like that. But it'll prompt him to double check and then, kind of have to explain, okay, here's what's going on with it. It's expected to go on back order. So I ordered some extra. I've done XYZ math that should last this long and that sort of stuff, rather than just, I order whatever and it just goes in unchecked.
Yeah, I think that's so great. It sounds like you have just truly set up such a amazing system on all the different aspects. So, what strategies do you think have been most helpful for you? I know you lean very heavily, like you mentioned, on the reorder tags and the reorder points. Is there any other strategies that you found incredibly helpful for you?
Well, Excel is definitely a very important part of my inventory system. I have a couple of different spreadsheets. I have one that I use where I keep a list of everything that I've ordered forever. So the entire time I've worked here, every single item is in this spreadsheet. The date that I ordered it, the description from the website, I copy and paste it with the entire description from the distributor's website, as well as the item number, the quantity I ordered, where I ordered it from, what date it came in, and then any notes about the item. And so then that makes it easy for me, like when I go to reorder something that maybe is a little more unique or doesn't have a reorder tag on it, especially things like different equipment replacements and stuff, like reordering a hot dog blanket or something like that that I don't do as frequently. I can just look up the last time I ordered it and I leave myself the trail of breadcrumbs. Like I ordered it on this website and that's how I did it, or I did it over the phone at this number and I spoke to so and so. Having that to refer back to is really invaluable. And I have another one that has just all of the reorder tags I've ever made. So then I can look up, okay, did I just never make one for this item, or did it go missing somewhere or something like that? And then it
Sure.
also has all the info that I put on the reorder tag. So it'll have what the item number is, where I should be ordering it from, what quantity I order it at, or order of it, what the reorder point is, and I also have a list on there of all the places in the hospital that it's kept. because that's one thing that can mess people up sometimes is if it's kept in multiple places, like if it's downstairs in the treatment area somewhere, but then there's also refill boxes of it in our upstairs inventory closet, and people don't realize to look there. And then I get notes saying, oh, we're out of this. And if I forget, because I don't remember every single thing in the entire hospital, but this gives me a little backup to say, like, okay, that's weird that I wouldn't have a tag for this. And I feel like I wouldn't run out this quickly. So then I can check my list and see, oh yeah, it lives in these other two places too. So I just grab it from one of those. And then I have another one that's all of our expired inventory. As it goes, I use AviMark to create a report of inventory that's going to expire. And I always look several months ahead. Usually I have my list at least 3 months ahead. And then I just update it as we go because some items are shorter dated than that when we get them in. And that I keep track of. I'll go down and I'll check each month, check to make sure that those dates are right, check to see if we have, we might already have another bottle of the item that is in date. So maybe I don't need to order it. I just, need to make sure I take it off the shelf. And then it also double checks to make sure I enter in there when I removed whatever's expiring from the shelf ahead of the date and stuff. So I can make sure that nobody's getting dispensed or having anything used on the patient that is expired. I also, when I check the dates, I put a big orange sticker on it that says like expiring and the date. So that
that's
folks know
super
when they go to
helpful.
grab the bottle, in case somehow I don't get to it on the right day to take it off the shelf, they'll see it and say, oh, this is expired. We'll just put this in her bin and grab the next bottle. But those 3 spreadsheets are big help for me.
Yeah, it sounds like they're just kind of like winner, winner, chicken dinner. So when it comes to inventory, do you like what is kind of the breakdown of what you have? Do you have like mostly like dental specialty stuff, or do you carry prescription diets? Do you have like kind of some non-dental related stuff, or is it mostly related to, kind of dental procedures?
I would say we have kind of everything. So we do carry some prescription diets because we do still have some general practice care, and the doctor likes to, keep some on hand in case somebody were need to be started on a diet or they want to try it out or something like that.
Sure.
But we keep a pretty minimal supply, and we try to get them to order from our online pharmacy whenever possible.
Uh-huh.
But we have certain clients that just prefer to pick it up here, so we keep it on hand for them. I would say we keep similar things to a general practice. We just have a much smaller selection. So, we have heartworm preventative, but we only have one kind. We have flea
Okay.
and tick, but we have one topical and we have one collar, and that's all we keep. And so we have antibiotics, but we only, I think, have 3 different types
Okay.
and so stuff like that. So it's similar, but we just keep less of it. And then I would say, as far as controlled substances go, because what we do so much is surgical, and we also have a lot of CRIs, that's
Mhm.
probably fairly similar to a similarly sized hospital.
Sure.
And then on top of that, the dental supplies is a big portion, but they're actually, I mean, footprint wise, they're pretty small, and they're not is replaced as frequently. I feel like they're more on hand in case, because there's a lot of things like for making crowns, for example. We might go through a rash of making like a bunch of crowns at once, and then we might not do it again for 6 months. And
Uh-huh.
it seems to be that's like the flow with our dental procedures. We'll do like root canals every day for a few weeks, and we'll rack through a bunch of those supplies, and I'll get them all reordered, and then we won't use them again for another couple months.
It's so interesting to me, like how that works. Like all of a sudden, it's like, the planets aligned perfectly. And it was like, okay, here's like 10
Mhm.
root canals, and then you won't see another for like 3 more months, and then you have 5 all like back to back to back.
Yeah, that's why, like, for us, I don't do like seasonal reorder points or anything like that. It's all just it's schedule really.
Sure.
I just kind of have to roll with the flow and keep that in mind as I see the tags coming in my bins and I see the appointments. I keep on top of what's scheduled to come in and stuff like that, so I can look ahead and make sure. Oh, okay. If I see we've got a bunch of root canals next week, and I've already got some tags for different files and supplies, I guess I better order them this week just in case, because we'll be using a lot more next week.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. So, what do you think has been your greatest accomplishment with managing inventory?
I would say, like, to me, a gauge of a successful inventory manager is somebody that doesn't run out of things and doesn't have expired things being used on their shelves and doesn't have the waste of expired stuff, that stays on
Mhm.
top of those things. It's all about making sure you have what you need and you don't have what you don't need,
Yes.
basically. and and that coupled with making it very easy for my staff to help me do that, because they have to be they're a part of it, but I try to make it as easy as I possibly can for them so that they don't need to, they aren't expected to immaculately know what a reorder point on an item must be to write it on the list to think, okay, this is running low. They don't have to know what that is. It's written on
Sure.
a tag if they want to check, but they'll see which items it's wrapped around and they know just to put it in the bin and they don't even look at the tags really. They just know when they touch one, it goes in the bin and that's it. And so they don't have to spend they can completely focus on what they're supposed to do because managing inventory is my job. And while I need their
Mhm.
help in making sure they give me the tags when they need to and things, I don't want to put any responsibility for it on their shoulders. They should be left to focus on patient care and that sort of stuff and just try to make it as easy as possible for them while not running out of things on my end.
Sure, absolutely. That's amazing. When you first kind of took over inventory at this practice and you were switching from kind of like the want book to the reorder tags, did you have any challenges kind of getting the team on board with the new inventory system, or did everyone kind of, adopt to the new way of thinking, fairly quickly?
I was actually very fortunate in that both practices that I worked with that I switched over the inventory systems, the entire staff was very willing to shift gears and switch because honestly my system was easier for them. So I think
Sure.
that was a big difference. They weren't expected to realize that something was running low. They weren't expected to stop what they were doing to fill out all the info into a reorder book and then be asked later on, oh, but wait, what size was it? Oh, but wait, what length was it? And having
Yeah.
to remember things like that they didn't write down. So I think it's easier to get buy-in when it's a very obviously an improvement, I think for
Uh-huh.
one. But I also both times were working with really fantastic teams that have always been very supportive and into changing things and trying new things and improving, and we're always willing to grow and adapt and evolve, so that really helps too.
Yeah, it really sounds like you have just fostered such an amazing culture with your team, with inventory and everything. So I feel like you should be very proud of everything that you've accomplished and done.
Why, thank you.
Of course. Is there anything you wish you would have known or learned sooner when you first started managing inventory?
I mean, it's hard because it's all sort of trial and error, and I feel like the things I would have learned, I wouldn't have learned if I like I wouldn't have learned them as well. If
Yes.
somebody had tried to just tell me this, or if I had learned it from a course or a book, I think some of it has to be a little bit of trial by error because things that work for one practice don't work for another. And
Hmm.
I've seen that too, just in being in so many different types of practices. Like the one where I learned a lot of what I use for inventory management. They never used reorder points they used AviMark, but they didn't use reorder points. But because they had 2 locations and 3 large animal trucks, it just wasn't realistic. And so they
Right.
had to rely 100% on reorder tags, which sometimes went through the wash there
Hmm.
because the reorder bin wasn't very centrally located. So that was one change. So it's all about tweaking different things. I think the biggest thing is to just remain very observant and open to trying different things. You can't be so dead set on this is how I do it because you have to roll with the changes and each practice is going to be a little different. Each situation is going to be a little bit different. And sometimes even just the staff influence part of it too is going to be a little bit different. It might not work with certain teams to do things 100% a certain way. You might have to tweak things a little bit still.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is so true. And, kind of I talk about, one of the inventory mindsets is to try stuff because, like you mentioned, not things are going to work differently, and kind of flow differently in every single practice. So I think, kind of picking strategies that you want to try, trying them and kind of adopting to your unique situation is super helpful.
Yeah, that was one thing I did take away a little piece from, I think it was on a board post, maybe in the on Vetcove or on the Veterinary Hospital Managers Association, where they were talking about how they keep track of in hospital use items.
Hmm.
And at the time, I didn't really keep track of things like that very well because I didn't have an effective method. And I have been managing inventory for quite some time at this point. But somebody said that they created an account in their practice management software that has like their clinic's info on it. And they have a patient named in hospice. And so the staff just enters it in there. That was like so much better. And then I also made one for just me to use for things that are returned or expired and discarded. And so instead of just adjusting the inventory number and putting in a variance in AviMark, I enter it in there. So I can go to that one patient and see, okay, this is all the expired merchandise that we've thrown away. And then this is all the merchandise that I've returned, and here's why. And then you go to the in-hospice one, you can see here's how often we go through these different items in hospital versus just with patients and stuff.
Sure.
And so things like that, like I've been doing inventory for a long time, and these thoughts hadn't occurred to me until I saw a post from somebody else. So I think it's also important, even when you do get comfortable in your own place, like when you've been somewhere for a while and things are running smoothly, to still be open and looking for new ideas, because there's always room for improvement and change. And our practice management software too always evolves and changes. So there might
Mhm.
be updates and, just better ways to utilize things and better ways to make it, more efficient or more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think are some of the most helpful resources for managing inventory? What has been particularly helpful for you?
100% Vetcove. I would never want to go. I did inventory for a long time before Vetcove, and I would have in my little internet browser every tab for every distributor. I would search every single item on there, try to see. Sometimes I couldn't get them to come up on all the websites of the same, apples to apples product, but it would take forever for me to place my orders then. I spent so much more of my time doing inventory then. And
Yeah.
then Vetcove came along and it streamlined everything. And on top of just making everything faster for ordering, it's faster for me to look up things. I can check the tracking information on my order so I can really quickly tell my practice owner, okay, it's going to be here this day. I can do that from my cell phone, from their app. And I have the access to their discussion forums and all the reviews and all kinds of things. It's a wealth of knowledge on their website, and it just grows every day. And it helps so much to have all the information right at your fingertips.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is such a game changer.
Mhm.
So, being at a dental specialty practice, what do you think is the most interesting case that you've ever seen?
Ooh, I see so many things. One of my earliest, very interesting cases that I saw was a dog that had just recently been adopted by the owner from a rescue. And then she brought her to us because her teeth were fractured, is what the appointment said.
Mhm.
Well, her teeth were more than fractured. Every single tooth in her entire mouth was fractured. This
Wow.
dog had some sort of rare genetic condition where she did not create dentin. So all of her teeth had pulp and they had enamel. And so if you picture, it's just that soft, thin outer shell with a pulp inside. So it's basically like eggshells, a whole mouth of eggs. And so every single tooth was fractured with this eggshell pulp left. And the dog was the sweetest dog ever. And she was super, super nice. She let us examine her mouth with every single tooth in it fractured. It took forever to try to get all of the roots and stuff out because they weren't solid.
Yeah.
So it was a major project, but she felt so good right after even. And the owner was so appreciative and so thankful and so happy that we could, fix her up and everything. But it was a very rewarding case too, like, because it was like horrific to see that, but it was really great to see it 100% better and know that she'd never be in pain like that again.
Yeah, that's amazing. I cannot even fathom the amount of pain that that dog must have been.
Yeah. And to still come in wagging her tail and let us
I
even go
know.
near her mouth, like she's nicer than I would be if I were in her
I
situation.
know. I get grumpy if I just have a toothache. Well, that is amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your wealth of knowledge and your strategies and everything like that. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? Any words of wisdom that you have for new inventory managers?
I would say just, try to take advantage of all available resources, ask questions, network, ask people on Facebook groups and the inventory network and on VetCove and all of these places. Ask them, question the methods that are in place when you take over. And is there a better way to do this? It doesn't
Mhm.
have to all be changed overnight. It's a process. It'll take time to make that system your own, but it's just all about looking at each process and saying, okay, is this the best way I can be doing this? And if not, okay, what are some other ways? What are some resources I can reach out to and see for some other options and see what might be a better fit for us? And just always be, flexible and willing to learn and grow and change.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you and to hear your story and hear all the incredible things that you did. So thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Inventory Nation podcast and spending your time with me. I know your time is valuable and in short supply, so it truly is an honor. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe or leave a review. Be sure to visit vetlogic.co/podcast to access the show notes and discover additional links and resources. See you next time.